The rain came down in thin, icy needles, the kind that soaked through clothes and into bones before you even realized you were cold. He almost didn't stop. As a single father, every minute mattered: daycare pickup, dinner, bedtime stories, a life measured in small promises to a little girl waiting at home. But then he saw her. A police cruiser sat crooked on the shoulder, lights dead, engine quiet. And on the wet asphalt, a female officer lay motionless, her uniform darkened with rain and something far worse. In that instant, with his heart slamming against his ribs, he understood a truth he could never unlearn: some moments don't ask for permission. They demand everything you have. He skidded to a halt, threw the door open and ran. She was pale, breath shallow, eyes fluttering like they were already drifting somewhere he couldn't follow. He knelt, cradling her head, hands shaking as he checked for a pulse. It was there, weak, stubborn, fighting. He spoke without thinking, words spilling out because silence felt like surrender. He told her his name. He told her he had a daughter. He told her to stay, to hold on, to listen to his voice even if everything else went dark. When sirens finally screamed in the distance, relief hit him so hard his knees buckled. He stayed with her until paramedics pulled him back, until she was lifted away, until the road felt empty again. He drove home drenched, late, and shaken, believing that was the end of it. It wasn't. Days later, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was steady but carried a weight that pressed into his chest. The officer had survived, barely. The department wanted to speak with him. When he arrived at the station, the air felt different, quiet, watchful. Men and women in uniform looked at him with a respect he didn't understand. He learned what had really happened that night: an ambush, a call gone wrong, a partner down, backup delayed. She had lost a dangerous amount of blood. The paramedic told him plainly that without someone there when he was, she wouldn't have made it. The truth settled over him like thunder. He had saved her life by stopping, by choosing a stranger over his schedule, by refusing to drive on. When he finally met her, she was propped up in a hospital bed, bruised and stitched, eyes sharper than he remembered. She thanked him quietly at first, then with tears she didn't bother to hide. He tried to brush it off, to say anyone would have done the same, but the room seemed to disagree. The chief shook his hand, officers nodded, stories spread. The force began to see him not as an outsider, but as someone who had stood in the gap when one of their own fell. He went back to his life, back to lunchboxes and laundry and bedtime routines, but something had shifted. His daughter noticed it first. "You look different, Daddy," she said one night. He didn't know how to explain that sometimes courage finds you, not the other way around. Weeks passed, then months. He assumed the story would fade, filed away as another close call in a dangerous job. Instead, it grew. The officer returned to duty, changed by what she'd survived. She spoke about him during training sessions, about the civilian who didn't look away. Her words rippled through the department, challenging old assumptions about who heroes are and where they come from. And then came the day he was invited back, not as a witness, but as an honored guest. The room was full, badges gleamed. The officer stood at the front, steady on her feet now, and began to speak. She talked about fear, about the moment she thought she would never see her family again. She talked about a voice in the rain that anchored her to life. When she called him forward, his hands trembled worse than they had on the roadside. The chief read a citation, but it was the silence afterward that carried the most weight. The kind of silence filled with respect, gratitude, and something close to awe. What shocked the entire police force wasn't just that a single dad had saved an officer's life. It was what followed. The department launched a new initiative focused on community response and civilian life-saving training, inspired by his actions. Officers volunteered to teach CPR and emergency aid in schools and neighborhoods. Barriers softened, trust grew. One small, human choice had triggered a chain reaction no one could have planned. After the ceremony, the officer found him alone in the hallway. She told him that surviving had given her a second chance, and that second chances come with responsibility. He told her that stopping that night had reminded him what kind of example he wanted to set for his daughter. They stood there, two lives intersected by rain and asphalt, both changed in ways they were still discovering. That night, as he tucked his daughter into bed, she asked why there had been pictures of him on the news. He smiled and told her the simplest truth he knew. He told her that helping someone matters, even when it's hard, even when you're scared, even when no one is watching. She nodded, satisfied, already drifting toward sleep. Long after the lights were out, he sat alone, thinking about how close he'd come to driving past, to missing the moment that would define him. The road, the rain, the woman fighting to breathe, all of it had led here. And in that quiet, he understood the message that would echo through the department, through his home, through every life touched by that night. You don't have to wear a badge to save a life, and one act of courage can change an entire force, an entire community, and a little girl's understanding of what it means to be brave.